All right, guys, welcome to our monthly meeting of the Roanoke Valley .NET Users Group. We do a lot of other things besides the .NET user stuff, as evident by the fact that we now have a Docker AI speech. But Mike Irwin is a developer and advocate for Docker, if I say it correctly. And today's talk is about AI tooling, how you can keep your AI under control and keep it fenced in. For the rest, I'll hand it over to. Oh wait, sorry, we have some announcements, right?
So in April, so we got a couple conferences coming up. In April, Codestock is happening in Knoxville, April 9th and 10th. Let's see here. We have B-Sides Roanoke on June 5th. That's a local conference. And that's run by Rise. And then also we're going to play a little video about this, but August 14th and 15th is the Carolina Codes. We've got a discount code that I put in the Discord. So it's Valley, but you can find it in the Discord if you forget. And it gets you 20% off or something like that. And it's like $128 right now with the discount code plus the early bird pricing. And it's a 2-day conference, and they're all very good conferences. So just something to keep in mind.
And we have a coffee and code this month as well.
Yes. So Saturday, the 21st of March, in Roanoke at the Mill Mountain Coffee on Starkey Road, we'll meet from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I always like to say, bring your laptop or don't, bring a project or don't. However you come is great. But yeah, we're just going to be shooting the stuff and, just sharing ideas and, maybe having a good cup of joe.
Yeah, and they have good coffee. They vary their coffee every time that we're there. So it's good stuff. It's not that expensive.
And they got good food too.
Yep. Mike, you want to kick off the video?
Sure.
Because I don't know what to do.
Use the other screen, so I'll show it to you.
I would love to, but
Okay.
they're broken.
Okay. So pay attention to this other screen.
Yeah, we fixed one thing. The bathrooms are now fantastic. But the screens are broken.
So we'll all just gather in the back.
Maybe not.
Okay.
Hi there. If you're watching this, you're probably attending a tech meetup in South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, or Georgia. My name is Barry Jones. I'm the organizer of the Carolina Code Conference here in Greenville, South Carolina, the corner where all 4 states meet. Our goal is to create an event where the tech communities in these 4 states can get together every year to network, learn from each other, connect, and have a great time. By attending a meetup in your area, you are part of that community. Tech communities are made up of people who get involved. They come out to events, they encourage each other, they share what they've learned, and they work to make their communities better. In the Southeast, these communities are typically more spread out than, say, Silicon Valley. So we've tried to create a great environment for you all to get together every year. We're a single-track conference, which this year means about 30 talks on one stage over 2 days. Most of those 30 speakers are from North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia, your communities. One of the advantages of a single-track conference is that you're going to probably learn something that you might not have otherwise. Plus, you'll have a common talking point with everyone in attendance. You can walk up to anyone who's there and ask them about their favorite talk and discuss it because you were both there. As part of our efforts to blend the cybersecurity and software communities in the area, our local DEF CON 864 group runs a Capture the Flag event during the conference that's geared towards programmers and first-time participants. Basically a contest to get information that you're not supposed to have, either from people or systems. Sometimes there's even activities like picking locks involved. Bring your laptop if you want to try it out. And just to keep the fun going, we even crowdsource our t-shirt. We vote on a song, and then we ask you to go to our GitHub repository and submit an entry of the song lyrics as code in your favorite programming language. Then we mix up all those entries and create a polyglot t-shirt that you can't help but sing while you read. Previously, we've turned Don't Stop Believing and Bohemian Rhapsody into Python, Elixir, Ruby, Erlang, Ansible, C#, Java, Clojure, Go, JavaScript, Rust, SQL, Perl, and PHP. You can go submit a PR right now. The conference is Friday and Saturday every August here in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. We'll have a welcome event on Thursday night, a fun night out on Friday, and then get to wind down after the conference at Fireforge Craft Beer. And because we're in the Southeast, we always commit to not interfering with college football season, so it's never going to be on a game day Saturday. The organizer of your meetup group should have a discount code to get you 20% off the conference ticket. We also have single day tickets available. It's going to be a great time to come learn and make some new friends. We hope to see you there.
Awesome. In this past year's, I have the codified lyrics to All Star by Smash Mouth at my shirt.
That's awesome. So today, we're going to talk about some of the AI tool and some of the things that Docker's building and thinking about. And I'll go ahead and say some of this is still cutting edge, and we're still building this. We're still thinking about it. And so, as I was sharing with a couple folks beforehand, I want this to be more conversational. And I see this much less of a lecture and more of just let's do fun stuff together. And obviously, I've got some slides and demos and things that just help support the conversation. But definitely want to go from there. So at the end of the day, these are some of the areas that Docker has been thinking a lot about. And we're not going to go through all of these in super in depth. But Docker. A lot of people think of Docker as containers, okay, and rightfully so. But especially in this AI world, there's a lot of ways in which containers can help us do AI related things. Okay, so how can I define and run AI created applications? And I'll actually share a couple of different stories and things around there. Run agents and tools with guardrails. Okay, the number of times in which agents just go rogue because they are just running natively on the machine and given access to everything on the machine. Well, that sounds like a terrible idea. Because it is. And so we'll talk about some of the things that we're doing in that space. And then the third area, we won't talk much about this one today unless folks want to get into it. If you want to build and create your own agentic applications using models and tools and that kind of stuff, what are some of the things that Docker is doing to help provide some of that? So we're going to kind of focus a little bit more on the first two of these today. But again, if you guys want to get into the agentic apps, we can certainly do that as well too. Okay. So this kind of high level overview, and actually Gordon got bumped down here, so a little bit of rearrangement. But again, we'll talk about using containers to accelerate AI driven development. We'll talk about some of the ways to extend and secure your coding agents and talk about sandboxes. And I think that's the hot term that everybody has, but we're taking a different approach to that. And so we'll talk about that. And then we'll actually talk about Docker agent / C agent. All right, so I want us to actually start off with a question. Who's using AI in their daily work? What use cases are you using AI for? What benefits / improvements are you seeing? Sean?
Sorry, I also just took a bite.
And I think that's gonna be, I should have like a counter over here, like the number of times. It's your turn, finish chewing your food.
So I have tried to actually get more into the agentic. I have a side project where I've been creating my own RAG retrieval augmented generative search off of a markdown based FAQ. And then also using Rails and like Pydantic AI and LangChain for creating a agentic AI service calling OpenAI API to read, both read the data that gets sent from the back end and then present it with AI enhanced or chatbot enhanced results. Right now, just for a wedding site because I'm getting married, so it's my side project. But yeah, I've been doing it all via Cursor and Docker, and just sort of like seeing like how can I get feedback from the AI services, because it's like, it's sort of like a black box. Once you send it to the AI, what's going on?
You never know what's going on in the black box. Okay, so you're building some AI enhanced applications. Okay, all right. Anybody else?
Mainly using AI for
Okay.
a lot of different tasks as an enhanced search engine. Whenever I look for the syntax of something or I have a problem and I know exactly how to do it, but I don't know the exact language, they're like, hey, I'm using Microsoft SQL and I want to do this. Just write a little program for me. Also, like Sean, using Cursor for a lot of that. And Cursor is scary as hell. I was just using it as a text editor the other day, and I was editing a CSV file in text mode. Yeah, okay, I'm that idiot. But I had to add some stuff to it, and it started saying like, "Oh, but you have that here as well. Do you want me to add it here, 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 and here as well?" I'm like, "Yeah." I can do that.
Tab.
So
Yeah. So a lot of the kind of chat completion kind of, or the not completion, but the auto suggest
right.
kind of capabilities. Yep.
But on a text that it has never seen before, and it was just part numbers and other numbers that have no relevance to anything that it has seen before. So
Yeah.
We're also using it for some legacy applications.
Okay.
Analyzing the code and documenting it, and even creating a flow diagram of how certain
How's it work?
and it's scary good at that.
That's been actually one of the things that we've been looking at of using AI to help reduce the bust factor.
Yeah.
Okay, only one person knows this, but okay, let's change that. Either produce documentation or what's additional context that we need to put in the repository. So next time we ask it a question, the AI's got a little bit more context to start with, et cetera.
Yeah, we actually did that because one of the applications was Progress 4GL, which is what I started out with in the 90s. It got me hired here, but nobody else in this company uses it anymore. So I was like, okay, how do I tell the AI what Progress 4GL is? Or I just set it like the programming handbook as one of the source documents, and it did pretty well.
Yeah.
I was proud of it.
Cool. All right, anybody else? Mike, yeah, go for it.
Mostly been using Claude
Okay.
for doing a lot of prototyping and recently a lot of refactoring large legacy code bases and introducing, modern patterns and
Mhm.
principles into that, doing that. And it's been fabulous.
Very cool.
Can I ask about that?
Sure.
Like, how does that actually work? I mean, and like, what do we mean by large here? Like,
Large, not necessarily in the amount of files, but in the density of the information and
Okay.
the logic contained in it, right?
okay,
These are a lot of, probably about 4 Python packages, right? That were written fast, no documentation, no tests. And I didn't get working versions. I got chunks of stuff that had a lot of redacted behavior.
sure,
So I
okay,
had to bring it together, figure out how it worked, create tests, start introducing patterns. And it worked, but again, a lot of it is in the having very focused prompts in terms of what I wanted. And it was always,
iteration.
well, it was always, this is what I want to do, make a plan.
Yeah.
List out the steps, but don't do anything until I approve it. And then once I do, it's, let's do step 1, review it. Let's do step 2,
Okay,
review it.
okay. Like hand holding it, like it does it, but you can't
Yes.
hand hold it. Okay.
If you let it go, I burn through all my chips. So,
Yeah, you can use a lot of tokens very quickly.
I've wondered, like, what if I just pointed at my company's repo for our, flagship app that's like hundreds or millions of lines of code or whatever, and was like, make it better. I'm curious what it would do.
You'd probably get a credit card bill of like $100,000 or so.
Yeah, and I think actually that's a good use case. I mean, so like, if you just simply say, hey, here's a huge code repo, just make it better. Well, it's an open-ended question. And it'd probably be difficult to know, well, what does better mean in this case? Are you wanting it more efficient? Do you want it more performant? Are there bugs that we're fixing? Or you want more tests? Like, what does better mean in that context? I think a lot of the use cases that I've seen have actually been kind of similar ones as well too. And I'll share actually a couple of experiences. So over the Christmas break, I took a my personal project. Said, I've been wanting to build this app. I do some of our church's live streams on YouTube and whatnot, but we wanted to get some other people involved with it. So I was like, can I make an app that just manages all the YouTube management side of things and generating reports and sending emails and all that kind of stuff? It's like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to make this app, and I'm not going to write a single line of code myself and see, can I steer the agents in the ways that it's doing it. Since I had just been at AWS reInvent, AWS was giving out crazy credits for their Kiro agent, but at the end of the day, it's using Opus and Sonnet Anthropic models. And so I spent some time with, okay, how do I structure the project? How do I define it and everything? And I mean, it definitely did not one-shot the project. But over the next actually 3 days, it only took me 3 days to build a full-on application that was multi-tenant, multi-user, worked with the YouTube APIs. It even created mock APIs for local usage, so I can develop and test against the mocks and whatnot. Had Prometheus metrics and built Grafana dashboards and deployed to Kubernetes. Like it built the CI pipelines. It did everything for me. And so, granted, this was a brand new application. It's not having to inherit a legacy system and figure out all the different minds and hands that were on the code and why they did something somewhere or whatever. The AI kind of owned everything here. But to me, that was kind of the aha moment, like, wow, these things are actually getting really good. Yeah, there's still some shortcomings, and yeah, you still need to be an experienced engineer to guide it. But things are getting pretty good. Another actually example, kind of with what Mike was saying, was reminding me as well too. In the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple of regressions that I noticed in Docker Compose. Things just weren't working right. But I knew, hey, it was working in the previous version. Why is it not working in this one? And I would basically just turn to Claude and say, hey, this is the error message I'm getting. It was working in this version. It's not working in this one. Figure it out. And it would do the git bisect and look at all the git logs and the diff changes and all this kind of stuff. And the one I actually just got merged yesterday ended up being that there was a dependency update for one of the libraries that Compose is using, that dependency had some API changes that was changing behavior. And again, it figured out the whole graph of things and how is the behavior change here affecting this? It figured it all out. And then, yeah, I told it at first, do the research, come to me with proposals of what needs to be changed. Don't do the work, but just tell me what you found first, and then we'll figure out how to resolve it from there. And then, yeah, I figured out the solution, submitted a PR. The Compose maintainers were like, yep, that looks good, and got merged in. And like, it took 15 minutes to do all that. Where for me to have to go and do all that research for a project that I don't touch much, especially at that depth, there's no reason for me to spend the time to learn all that when I'm just going to throw it away once I'm done fixing that regression.
That's actually funny that you bring that up, because I just saw a presentation by somebody who said, like, this is one of the advantages of AI. When you have a project and you don't touch the project for 6 months, you have to completely spin up again. And the AI is just in a state, it's just static. And for the AI, it's yesterday, because it knows exactly what the code was yesterday. 6 months ago, it still knows the exact code.
Yeah, and it's, for me anyways, when I have to trace all the code, a lot of times I have to remember, okay, wait, this function called this one, and it's easy for me to get lost in the web, where I think the agents do much better with, once they, okay, this function does this, it's going to remember that for the next time, and it's not going to get lost in that web as much. So, anyway.
What can I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
So what's your impression on Kiro? Because I actually tried Kiro when it first came out last year.
Yep.
And I actually found that I was able to get better, conversation, interaction, whatever, if I didn't use their, what do they call it? SDD or
Spec files.
spec-driven development feature.
Yeah.
And so I've been using Cursor, and now Cursor has its plan function.
So the things I really liked about Kiro, so for those that haven't done anything with Kiro, one of the things that Kiro talks about and encourages you to do from the start is create what they call steering files, where when you have a project, you would create the first steering file is they call it the product.md. It's the product markdown file. And it's like, why does this thing exist? What business function is it serving? What are the users? What are the personas? What are the workflows that it's trying to accomplish? There's nothing about the tech stack or anything in that file. It's just, here's the pure reasons why this thing exists. Then there's another file called the tech.md that now gets into the tech stack. Okay, this is a React front end with an Express backend or Java or whatever, gets into some of the tech stack. Okay, we use containers, we deploy Kubernetes, et cetera. Starts getting into tech things. And then the final one is the structure MD, where it now gets into what's our coding style guides? How do we want to lay out our file directories and all that kind of stuff. So it gets very nuanced as it goes throughout these files. What I found was when I was using this, I never had to go back to Kira and say, hey, you know, you're doing things the wrong way. Yeah, you may get it working, but it's not conforming with the rest of our style guides or how we want to do things. Where I think in my experience as I've worked with Claude and the other, a lot of times the Claude MD or an agents.md file, whatever, are usually pretty sparse. There's not a whole lot in there. Now, of course, you can put whatever you want in there. But I found that with Kira, since it was kind of forcing me to put these guidelines in place, I got output that I wanted to maintain, where sometimes Claude is going to give me output that it wants to maintain. And so, again, I can still steer Claude that way, but I do like the approach that Kira is having of, hey, we're trying to build things that are maintainable for the long run. And so you see some of that spec-driven mindset coming into the other agents because of that. And so I think in many ways it kind of reflects the, hey, AWS is an engineering organization. So as they build their agent, they're thinking about how do we build these things for our engineering organization to maintain it long run. Or I think Claude and a lot of these other agents, again, not a bad thing, but I think they're coming from a different angle, where I think a lot of it's been the AI folks, the data sciences, or yes, they still have really strong engineering capabilities, but it's a very different mindset. And so I think the worlds are coming together a little bit. So yeah, I like the spec-driven approach because especially as time goes on, I think more AI development is going to be intent-driven development like that. So being able to define it, here's my specification, here's what I want to have built, now agent just go, I think is the right approach. I don't think we're fully there yet, but so again, I think Kira's on the right track, and I think the others are, everybody's just picking ideas from each other. But so I had a good experience with it, but it did take a while to like build out those initial files. It's kind of fun. I built out the product.md, and I actually said, hey, this tech.md, help me write it. And I actually used Kira to write those other steering files. And there were times when it was just like, well, what's your preference about this? And I just said, I don't have a strong opinion, just pick something. And so I can inject my opinions where I want to use it.
So a lot of people use AI to help them with code or actually code for them.
Yeah.
Does anybody use AI for like data analysis? Like give it a block of data and say like, hey, pick out
Find the trends.
Yeah, or find the trend or find the outliers and eliminate them, or no?
There was an interesting presentation at the past summit. Can't remember his name, but he was using Llama to create regressions in SQL databases in order to basically allow for a chat model on top of that. So you could basically ask it a question around that data structure.
Gotcha.
It's fascinating stuff. So people are moving in that direction. I personally have not.
Yeah, I have a data cleaning task that I need to do, and it's taking forever because I have to look at every detail and go like, I don't know what they meant here. Let me ask them again. Okay, maybe AI can help me with that. So
I do actually like when I have a financial analysis portal that I've created, and before I ask the AI to code it up, I will do my test bed, Jupyter Notebook or Cursor or VS Code can both actually work with the Jupyter Notebook right there in the code editor. And I will use the chat agent to, this is what I'm looking for, how would we do this? And I can, just say, just do this part. And so I just have a few code blocks versus having a full application. So I use that sort of like as my preliminary, MVP, if you will, before getting into any actual coding. It's just one way to do it.
Because I think that is going to be a massive application of AI.
I mean, I keep seeing the promises of it. I don't know if I've seen a lot of the fruition. I mean, granted, I have been able to like open up some of our analytics dashboards, and there's a little AI up at the top, and it's like, okay, ask a question. And so like I opened up and just said, hey, help me understand trends with Docker Docs usage, but even for that, it was mostly using what data I already knew about and just generating me a chart with the things that were already there. So it's not really
less AI, more
yeah. It's just a different interface to what I might have already done in the past.
It's sort of like, in order for it to just go in and interpret things, you need to give it a targeted scope, and it also has to have a lot of context for whatever the data.
You've got to train it. I mean, if you're talking like machine learning versus AI, you've got to have some form of training mechanism for it. So,
and that's, I think, where a lot of the data analysis using the traditional kind of machine learning methods and that kind of stuff. I've seen some teams actually starting to use AI to help produce training data sets that then can then be fed into model training, which of course, like, how do you validate that? And I mean, it raises some other concerns and questions, but I mean, in order to train models, you need huge data sets to train those models. And so sometimes it's hard to get that data, but if you can synthetically create some of that data, then that can help. Of course, what biases are you putting into all that kind of stuff? That raises a whole nother level. That's probably worth a whole nother talk. But there you go.
Yes, it's a good point you bring up about AI versus machine learning.
Yep. All right, so to continue on here. So I'll talk a little bit, just again, these are some of my experiences that I had when I was going through some of these recent things. And some of these may not be that much of a surprise to you, but to me, it was kind of some additional aha moments where, again, I think AI is getting quite good at writing code. Okay, create me, in this case, just a silly example, create a website that displays my favorite memes using Python that will work on every machine. And when Claude built that, it said, great, I built this Python app. You're going to have to run this pip command and the Python command to actually start it up. And so again, that means I need Python installed on my machine. I need pip, et cetera. What versions of things and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of the traditional runtime environment thing. I was hoping that when I said that will work on every machine, it would be like, great, let's use containers, but it failed me. So that's all right. So of course, that's, I'll just make the little container pitch, and it said, can you update this website, use containers for local development and deployment? And then just from there, it's like, oh, duh, made the Docker file, made the compose file, did all the right things that it was supposed to do. So once I kind of steered it in the right direction, it did what it was supposed to. But for me, like, again, using compose, defining your environment, I've had lots of talks, and I don't think this is too surprising to anybody, but the ability to just, hey, I can clone a repo, run compose up, and now I have the environment set up. It's a lot easier to do now than it ever was. One of the things that when I first joined Docker, I had to help everybody kind of realize there's kind of two personas that use containers, especially in development, okay? And I've kind of just narrowed it down to there's producers and there's consumers. There's those that set up the compose files, the Docker files, that, set up all the structure. And then there's everybody else that's like, I don't know what's going on. I start my development environment. I run this Docker compose up command. This magic happens, or it's a dev container, whatever it is. There's somebody that sets up the environment and structure. And then there's everybody else that just says, I'm going to run it, and it's a black box. And I don't touch it. If something goes wrong, I go back to the person that wrote it. Okay. And so what AI is helping us do is make it much easier to either become a producer or just delegate it off to this other thing that can be the producer for you. And so the journey of being able to actually containerize and set up a containerized development environment is a lot easier to do now than it used to be. But some of the other things that I ran into when going through this effort, so story time here. So this particular app, okay, and yes, I used AI to generate this image. I'd actually like that is some garbage code on the screen, but at least SMTP ports blocked is all written correctly and no spelling errors there. So this particular app that I was building, I wanted to send emails, and the first iteration that it took was just great. Let's just use SMTP, define these environment variables and user password, blah, 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 and it'll go from there. I use a hosting service called Civo. It's just a Kubernetes hosting platform. It's pretty cheap. Been using it for years. I deploy my app there. I use a test endpoint to send an email, and nothing happens. Like, what is going on here? Well, come to find out, I looked at their docs, and the SMTP ports are blocked, which a lot of hosting providers do. I should have thought of that beforehand. And so I was like, well, crud. What am I going to do here? So I went back to Claude, because again, this was Hero, and this again was my experiment. I don't want to write any code. So I said, I've learned my prod environment blocks SMTP ports, so I can't use SMTP for email sending. I'd like to standardize. So I was using SendGrid anyways, but just our SMTP service. I'd like to standardize on using SendGrid, so I want to use this package for email sending. Also means I can no longer use MailHog for local testing validation. So back up for a second. Since I was using SMTP in my compose stack, it had configured a MailHog. It's just a fake SMTP service that was running my local environment. So then when I was sending the emails, I can open up MailHog and see the emails that were sent. Okay. So I told Kira here, hey, I can't use MailHog anymore. So ideally, I'd still like to have a local mock service so I can configure the SendGrid API to send its request to you, and that service displays the recently sent emails. Can you help me make this change and build a mock service? Okay, so this was the prompt I gave it. Okay, and then from there, it just went and did. Okay, and I won't get through all of it. Like, here's a code snippet of the mock SendGrid API, because well, SendGrid has a public API. Okay, and it knows the API structure. Okay, to send email, this is the API endpoint. Here's the parameters that go to it. So it knew both the API documentation, but also its node packages, the SDKs, are well documented as well too. And so it could use all that context to figure out, okay, what does the mock service need to look like here? So it wrote the code, and I'm going to send an email. It's extracting all the different pieces out. It saves it just in memory here. It added it to my compose stack. So now there's the SendGrid mock service that's here, and then configures the API to now point to it, updated the API code so that it can be configurable there. And then there's the front end for the SendGrid service. Okay, so with a single prompt, it completely swapped out SMTP to now use the API driven approach, built out the service, has it up and running there. And so then as I'm, again, in local development, I still just do a clone Docker Compose up, and I had the full stack. I can send emails. I can then open up this front end and see, okay, what emails were sent? Where is it structured right? All that kind of stuff. Again, it was kind of one of those like, wow, okay, this is something I would have done on my own, but now it's so much easier now that I can just ask the agent, hey, I want a mock for this. And again, it's something that it has context of because it's well-documented APIs and SDKs. And I saw actually as the prompt was, or while it was satisfying the prompt, it actually ran some node code. And there's other API endpoints here that actually gets the emails that were sent. So it used those to test and validate that everything was working. So it actually wrote some node code. It said, great, I'm going to use the SendGrid mock, or the SDK. I'm going to send an email. Okay, now let me hit the API endpoint, validate. I saw the email. Okay, great, everything's wired together, right? You're good to go. I was just like, that's pretty slick. But I did a similar thing for the YouTube service as well, and it made a similar one. And some of the YouTube APIs aren't as well documented, okay, what the parameters are and all that stuff. And as it again was validating itself, it's like, oh wait, the SDK is expecting this in the response. Okay, let me go add that to the mock service. And it's like it built it by using the libraries and just kind of that iterative loop. And it was like, wow, this is pretty slick. So again, just another plug for by having a containerized environment opens up a lot of these other kind of opportunities to again kind of go back, jump here, git clone, Docker Compose up, and now I can have everything there in my environment.
When it's running commands, this is because you're running in agent mode. Or is it running these, like you said, it ran some node code to issue the emails. Is it doing that in a container or in your local dev environment? Unless your local dev environment is a container.
It was basically doing, so I had a container for the API. It would do a Docker Compose exec inside of that API container and then run the node code inside of that container.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, because it knew, okay, that's the node environment that I'm using here. And it was actually pretty slick. Sometimes I saw that it would actually do like write this file and it's piping it into node and like things I never would have done myself. So it's not actually even making a file for the test. It's just, piping and moving things around and whatnot. And it's pretty slick. Yeah, Mike.
This might be jumping ahead a little.
That's fine, go for it.
When using Kiro against containers, is there any way to guarantee that Kiro will only interact with the containers and not go outside of those boundaries?
Yeah, good question. I'll get to that. Yeah, because actually that's actually a good segue here. So this is a good example of when things are working right. Okay, but what happens when things don't work right? Okay. And it's actually almost daily now that I see messages like this on Reddit or LinkedIn or whatever, like, what can go wrong when using agents? Claude CLI deleted my entire home directory. Google Anti-Gravity deleted my whole drive. Copilot. A lot of them seem to be wiping of hard drives. And it's actually kind of funny, this Claude CLI one, if you look at the top comment on that Reddit post, the number one comment is like, well, I'm never running this outside of a container. Like, hey, thanks for the free marketing. But it's almost daily now that I see some sort of post. For a while, I was kind of skeptical. Okay, are people actually just trying to kick the agent hard enough? And the agent just says, fine, I'll just nuke your hard drive just so that they can have a Reddit post and like get some karma or whatever. Who knows? But actually, just a couple days ago, I saw this is a friend of mine on LinkedIn. He was posting, wait, I'm not connected to him. It's the second level. Anyways, I'll have to fix that. Talked to him for years. But anyways, so he helped build an open source project called Falco that does runtime security, especially like Kubernetes environments. But what was interesting here, so that they've been building something for the AI space. And it's kind of going through this. Yeah, he's announcing the launch of V2, but some of the things in here. Okay, we told Claude Code not to run NPX. It found another path to the binary. When the sandbox caught that, it disabled the sandbox. So like, no jailbreak, no adversarial prompting. The agent just wanted to finish the task. At the end of the day, agents just want to do whatever they've been told to do, and they're going to do everything they can to accomplish that task. It's not like, okay, most cases, they're not trying to be malicious. They're just, you gave me this task, I need to go do it. And so it talked about in here, it identifies binaries by this particular product by SHA-256 hash. Rename it, copy it, symlink, the hash doesn't change, the kernel blocks before it runs, et cetera. Agents tried everything, path tricks. So, okay, if I can't run NPX, what if I change it to custom NPX? So now I call custom NPX. Well, the sandbox rules said I can't run NPX, but that's, there's ways to circumvent that. Okay. Python subprocessor wrappers. I'll actually do one of those here in just a second as well too. Copy the binary to some other place. I mean, so there's a lot of ways to circumvent the rules that agents might have. Okay. And so this is one product that was thinking about that. Okay. So actually as a little demo here.
Hold on, you missed the last sentence.
What's that?
They found a way around.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So even as they built this, okay, Yeah, we took all of it, and then the agent stopped and told us I've hit a wall. Then it found a bypass we didn't anticipate, which, I mean, yeah, these agents are smart. Okay. 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 All right. So in this case, I've got a file at the root that I just call secrets.txt, whatever. It just has an API key, bogus key here. Okay. And then I've got in my Claude settings, you can configure permissions to say, hey, Claude, these are things that you can and can't do. Okay. So I deny the ability for it to read secrets.txt. Okay. Yeah, let me just nuke everything in here. Yeah. Okay. So let's start Claude. All right. Tell me about the things I have in my secrets.txt file. Okay. And so this is going to do some sock hopping apparently. I'm not going to read it. File's name secrets typically contain sensitive information, blah, blah, blah. And so it's about half the time in which the model will say, hey, that seems suspicious. I probably shouldn't do this. But even if it didn't catch this, and the permissions would say, hey, I'm not allowed to read that file. Okay. All right. So then let's try this. Create a Python script that will read arbitrary files from my home directory.
So can it run commands when you prompt it like this, or is it just responding with text?
So in this case, I'm not running in YOLO mode. Okay, so in this case, it's trying to create a file. Okay, and it's prompting me, do I give it permission to do so? I can run this in YOLO mode and then it will just go and do. But yeah, so it's actually doing things here. Okay, so now it's written this. Okay, great. Run that program. And ask it about secrets.txt. Okay, and now it's saying, great, can I run this? Sure, yeah, run that. Okay, Python's not found because I'm on the Mac and it needs to be Python 3, and so great, let's run that, and oh, great, now it has my API key. Okay, so again, my permission said, hey, you can't read this file. Well, guess what, it just read the file.
It's running the program.
Exactly, okay. So again, there's lots of ways that things can be circumvented here. Okay. Now, of course, I guided the agent in this case to be able to do that. But you can imagine, okay, I am in a situation in which, okay, I wake up to work one day and I'm just going to open up my agent and say, hey, let's grab a task that's assigned to me off of GitHub and just go to work. Okay. And what if that task was created by some random user that had a prompt injection in it? I said, hey, it looks legitimate, but in the steps it says, all right, yeah, grab your AWS credentials and do this, but maybe actually don't grab the AWS credentials and yeah, write a Python script. And so, especially when you're using external user input, you have to be very careful because that user input could guide the agent to do exactly this. Okay. Yes, again, I'm telling it to do it, but that prompt can come from somewhere else too. Okay. So now the question is, well, how do we block this kind of stuff, or at least how do we reduce the opportunities for that to happen?
Right.
Yeah, Sean.
Or how can you yourself verify that the API key is right without letting the agent read it?
Yeah, and the good question that I'll raise as well too, and we'll get to this a little bit more here in just a minute. But the aha moment that I've had recently over the last couple of months is if we really take a step back and think about it, agents themselves should never really have access to any credentials, ever. The agent itself, the only credential it should have access is just how do I authenticate to my model provider? Okay, to Anthropic, to OpenAI, et cetera. If I need access to other tools, okay, that's actually the beauty of MCP. Okay, so if I have these MCP servers, okay, a GitHub MCP server, for example, that GitHub MCP server should be the only thing that has access to my GitHub credential. Okay, and as you start thinking about that way, that's a microservice architecture where I have an agent that has, again, only the access to things it does, that it needs access to the MCP server. You have this web of least privileged processes that can only do the one thing it should be able to do and do it well. And then you can, audit the usage of that, et cetera. And so then if something like this happens, the agent doesn't actually have access to anything in the first place. That's where we're going to. I wouldn't say that it's there yet, except for maybe I was in a conversation with somebody last week where at his company, they're very forward-thinking AI. They've created, they call it a DTU, a digital twin universe, in which basically they have their entire business, another clone of it that's completely AI driven. But those AIs, like they had their own Slack workspaces, their own Google Drive workspaces, like everything. As new agents come on board, they enroll them into an identity system that has SSO and through the SCIM integrations actually then configures them with the Slack. Like they're almost real people in this whole universe. I'm like, that is way beyond. Like, I can't imagine how much you're paying for token usage and everything around all that. But it raises interesting ideas of like in a fully automated agent universe like that. Yeah, how do you audit what's going on and who's behaving and who isn't? And yeah, so you've got some workers and you start having like, yeah, what's the agent security team look like? And like you're basically recreating your entire business in this digital universe, which is just fascinating.
Sims on steroids.
Yeah.
Is that using OpenClaw?
That one's not. I can't remember what they said they were using. I think they were using Gas Station for a little while and then kind of spun off into some other thing as well too. It's some in-house system that they've got that was built on something. But anyways,
it's fascinating shit though.
It is,
because if you look at our factory here, we have continuous improvement events where we go like, okay, we have a whole bunch of people in the room. Everybody's talking about like, well, how can we improve this by 5 seconds? How can we improve this by 10 seconds?
Yeah.
But if you model it in an AI,
yeah,
and let the AI figure it out, just
yeah,
do 100
but
iterations.
it's AI that can work 24/7, 365.
Exactly.
And yeah, so it's interesting to think about. Again, I don't know if that's that level is the future necessarily, or if it's just a fun thought experiment. I don't know. Yes, it seems crazy, but it does at least raise some interesting thoughts of like, okay, what about this? What about that? Am I going to have a job next year? that kind of stuff. But
you're just going to be hurting AI agents.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have a civilization in a decade.
In fact, actually, well, I'll have to show you in a little bit. But one of my teammates, his avatar on Slack is basically just his head with a bunch of like leashes for his AI agents. It's just his avatar. It's pretty hilarious. Anyway, okay, so one of the things that we've been building is what we've called Docker Sandboxes. And so the sandbox is basically, okay, run your coding agent in an isolated environment, okay, where then the things it has access to are only the things you give it access to. Okay, so when I start a sandbox, it only has access to the local directory that you're launching it from. Okay, so it doesn't have access to even the home directory, and we'll see that here in just a second. We've been through several iterations of this. The first iteration was, okay, we're actually going to just run the sandbox in a container, which makes sense. But actually, our most recent implementation, which just came out a month ago, actually runs it in a full micro VM. And so there's a whole micro VM that starts up, and then the agent is running in a container inside that micro VM. And that opens up some interesting possibilities, which I'll show here in just a minute as well too, by using a VM.
Can I ask why you wouldn't? I mean, my first thought was, oh, if I want to play with one of these agents, I would just spin up a standard, like, I don't know, Ubuntu container or whatever, and run the agent in there.
Yep.
What are the downsides to that approach, or what are the upsides that you get by starting to do it this way?
So there's a lot of people have been doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the things that we're looking at enhancing there is, so for example, if I start up a Claude container for this project, and then if I go to another project, it'd be nice if when I start in the second project, I can reuse the authentication or the settings or whatever things that I had from the other project, so that some things can carry across sandboxes. And so some of those things that we're looking at. The other things that we're looking at, maybe I'll just jump ahead, especially with this micro VM environment, you get some things by being in a container. Okay, of course, you get the process isolation, you get the file system isolation, you get some of that. But some of the things that are still really difficult are, for example, observing the network. If you want to say, hey, I'm going to allow access to these 20 domains, but I want to deny everything except for these, it's hard to set that up in a container, just in a single container. But in a micro VM, you could say, hey, this entire VM, the only route out is through this network proxy that now we can monitor literally everything that goes in and out of this environment. And so then, we could set up that VM with, here's the that network proxy certificate and all that kind of stuff. And so again, you can see everything that goes in and out. And then for some prompt injections that say, hey, take this data and now send it to evildomain.com, well, you can actually block that now. Where if it's just in a single container, just running a Ubuntu container, you could do it, but it's significantly harder for you to do. And so it's those kind of things that we're trying to solve. And in fact, I'll show you a little bit. Okay. So this is some of the early version of things. We're building this tool called, well, the internal project name is called Konami. I won't go into the why it's called that, whatever. But when I started, I get this pretty slick TUI, where I even get tabs across the top and everything. And I can see quite a few of my different sandboxes that I've got going on here. But over here on the governance side of things, I can see every request that has been going in and out of my various sandboxes. So I can see things, I can see what's been blocked. Oh, thanks, Ron. What's been allowed. I know it's a little dark there. And I can see all the network rules of things that are allowed, things that aren't allowed. Per sandbox or global rules. So for example, now let's go back to our Claude example here. All right, Docker Sandbox. Run, I want to start a Claude agent here. And again, since this is starting a micro VM, it takes a little bit longer to launch everything. Starting a VM, it's loading the Claude container image into that VM, then starting everything up. But now I'm up and running here. And now I can actually just do a ls of the home directory. And now I don't even see that the secrets.txt file is not even here. Okay. So I can't leak it if it's not there. And so again, this is a very locked down environment. Now, of course, if I want to mount things and give it access to it, then okay, that's me explicitly giving the agent the permission to access that stuff rather than it being there by default. Okay, so actually, let's just try this. Let's just go vt.edu. Okay, so yeah, block by network policy. Okay, so again, that wasn't allowed by my network policy, so I got a 403 forbidden, and I should be able to see it over here. There it is. Okay. So yeah, I see that the block there, so let's go ahead and allow it. And now if I just go back over here and run it again, now I get my HTML back. Okay. And so of course, this is just me as a user. So, I'm just on my laptop screen here, but what I started doing for myself anyways is I'll just open this up, have the Konami TUI just sitting on the side, and I'll be working on my agent stuff. And when it gets stuck with something, okay, hey, I need to pull this Python package or download this Go module, whatever, I'll see the block. Okay, let me go ahead and allow that and go through. I'm trying to, most organizations are probably gonna have a deny first and then allow from there. So great, let me practice that. Let me dog through this. And again, it's letting me do that. And I can set the policies, whether it's a global allow for all sandboxes or just this one sandbox. Again, I can customize rules there. So this is something we're building. The TUI will be released in the next probably 2 weeks here. So you're seeing an early version of it right now. But the sandboxing capabilities is built into Docker Desktop right now. So what I was doing here of actually launching the sandbox that was there, you have to use CLI commands to actually change the network policies or modify files directly right now. So where we're going with this next then is then organizations can actually define their own network policy rules. And so an organization can say, hey, these are the places we're going to allow or not allow when, block statements are provide audit logs across the organization, be able to see things going on, et cetera. So
Can you reroute stuff as well? For example, if I have my own Python library content.
good question. We don't have that right now. I think it has been brought up. We have our own in-house registry or something like that. It's not there today, but would be a interesting thing to do there. Yeah.
So this terminal UI TUI, are you guys also looking at having a GUI version of it, or is it only going to be TUI?
Tell me more. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, because like Docker Desktop, right? Yeah. So you can access everything from Docker Desktop. Is this something that would?
So this is actually going to be something
in Docker Desktop.
This is one of the things that's going to be interesting is this is going to be split out in, well, it will be bundled with Docker Desktop, or at least the TUI, but it will also be completely available. Just brew install this tool and get all the sandboxing capabilities. And so for organizations that are like, well, we don't have Docker Desktop licenses, but we still want this, or you can still just get this without having to worry about all the Docker Desktop licensing and all that kind of stuff. So we're spinning this out as its own product, its own standalone thing. Now, as far as the GUI thing, there are discussions internally of at least having a web-based version. I don't know how many of you use Tilt. It's a kind of Kubernetes, almost like Docker Compose meet Kubernetes. So tilt.dev is the website. But when you start a project in Tilt mode or enable Tilt, the way you interact with it is through a web dashboard that is running there. So that's been one of the ideas, is basically just providing a web dashboard. Anyways, I think there is a desire to have something there. But in the meantime, too, the team has been doing a lot of trying to reimagine what TUIs actually look like and use. Because like actually there's tabs here and I'm clicking through and say, all right, yeah, hey, let's stop that one. And I'm not having to navigate with tabs and spaces and what's the keyboard shortcut for this. Like I'm actually like clicking around and using the mouse, and I can, well, I'll do another demo here in just a minute as well too, but like mouse events and everything. So like this is, even though it's in a terminal, it's very GUI-like too. All right, other questions? Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. So sandboxes, again, run the agent in a lockdown environment. The agent itself is running in a container. You've got network control, visibility, et cetera. One of the other things I'll mention here too is that you can also then schedule things and say, hey, I want to run, every morning at 8 o'clock, run this agent that summarizes the emails I didn't get to yesterday and help me know what I need to get to today or whatever. So you can actually like put some of these on a cron schedule, which is pretty cool. Okay. One of the other thing, again, kind of going to the whole microservice idea is you got your agent, great, it needs access to tools. Where do those tools come in? MCP, anybody not familiar with MCP? Okay. So MCP stands for the Model Context Protocol, and it's basically a way to say agents have built-in capabilities, but they can't do everything. So for example, if I wanted to say, hey, agent, can you go and look up information about my GitHub profile or go get details or whatever, the agent itself can't do that. And so there's a GitHub MCP server that exposes tools that then the agent can then say, hey, can you go fire this tool and go open GitHub issues or whatever. So MCP basically defines the protocol from these packaged processes, that the packaged tools, and how do agents get the listing of tools, delegate the tool calls, et cetera. So MCP is that protocol.
You just said that like GitHub might have an MCP, but it would still be the case that you would have the MCP and choosing what tools to expose to your agent, right? It's not that like GitHub is actually hosting an endpoint publicly so that AIs can know about what.
So there's a little bit of both in use. So GitHub distributes theirs, so you run their MCP server on your local machine. Now, of course, it's still up to you. You could say, hey, GitHub, you expose, I think it's the number of tools has varied over time, but let's just say 45 tools. That's great, but I only want to actually use 10 in the context of this AI interaction.
But
so you can
sites are publishing like MCP.
So for example, Atlassian doesn't distribute an MCP server. You connect to a remote MCP server that and they provide the tools to that.
Okay.
So in many ways, it's almost a wrapper around their API.
Yeah.
Is the way that works. But then again, I can still filter the list and say, yeah, you may give me 45 tools, but I'm only going to allow these 5 to be used. But it also means that I don't have to run their MCP server. So there's trade-offs to both.
I just don't think I realized that people were already starting to. Yeah, I'm probably behind the curve on that one.
Oh, good. Well, and I think especially that remote one, there's still a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to authentication and who are you, that kind of stuff. But anyways, so yeah, MCP introduces. I'll be focusing more on the local experience. How do I find these MCP servers? How do I install them, set them up? And again, a lot of times folks are just running these MCP servers. It's a npx command to run this node-based MCP server, UVX for this Python-based one, which again, it's just running on your machine. It has access to everything on your machine. What if it goes rogue again? And so some of the things that Docker did there, okay, here's examples of things. Cursor system linked prompt. I'm not sure why that's an MCP one here. Probably wrong screenshot there. But using GitHub Copilot and Cursor and how they're using MCP in wrong ways. MCP servers that have RCE, remote code execution vulnerabilities in them for file swaps, tool poisoning attacks. There's just a lot of ways that MCP can go wrong. And so one of the things that Docker did was said, again, why aren't we running these in containers? And then you don't have to worry about, is this a Python one? Is this a Go? Is it Node? Or like, who cares? Just run the container. And now you don't have to worry about how to actually set it up and install it. But also now you've, again, put a guardrail around it where now it doesn't have access to things it shouldn't have access to in the first place. And so we built a catalog. There's a lot of different, why that logo is floating way out there. Anyways. So there's a catalog of over 100 MCP servers for Notion, and AWS I think has like 7 or 8 different MCP servers depending on which thing you want to interact with, and Stripe and blah blah blah. And so with this catalog, then you can again do lots of different things with it. And so with this MCP catalog, yeah, go for it.
So are you saying that basically there's a container that you can host all your MCP, because you may host the MCP server locally, or you may install a client that uses the remote MCP server, right? So that the catalog provides a secure capability to choose from these MCP servers or clients and install them in a container that your agent can interact with, and they're bounded by that. Because there's I'm thinking of some that I've used, right? AWS's Terraform MCP server, for example, but that has to reach out to Terraform. Things like that. So how could I use that in a secure, containerized way?
Yeah, so what the catalog is providing is basically just, here's the collection of MCP servers that are already containerized. And so again, I'll just go back to this one. So for example, if I want to use Stripe's MCP server, I don't have to do a UVX command, an NPX command, or whatever to do that. I can use the containerized version of this. Now, of course, most of these are going to be calling out to external endpoints. The GitHub one, for example, is going to talk to the GitHub API. But at least the local running process of that is in a container, is isolated. kind of same thing with the AWS and Terraform. Like it still needs the plan files. It still needs okay, what resources are going to be interacting with. It's at least just the local execution of that is.
Then you just, when you install it in Claude, you just point to your containerized version.
Exactly. Yep. And so I'll actually try that here, and maybe we'll just jump to that. Okay.
So how do you get the secrets to work with within that?
I'm glad you asked. I'll turn off the dark mode just to make it a little bit easier to see. Okay. I'll zoom it into. Okay. So, and I'll say too, what I'm showing you here, the MCP Toolkit, is not yet integrated with the sandbox stuff. That's coming very soon. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a demo and actually connect it just to Claude running on my local machine. Okay, so I got the MCP Toolkit. Let me delete that. Okay. And so when I open this up, I could see, I was saying 100, there's 300. So there's over 300 different MCP servers that I can go through. And honestly, a lot of these, like I've never heard, like Novita. I don't even know what Novita is. So like a lot of these, again, no idea. But I'm gonna just quickly make a profile here. We'll just call this default. Let me select GitHub. Okay, I want to give my I want to give Claude access to do things for GitHub. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and add that server, and then I'm going to configure and say, Teams window here. Okay, let's connect it to Claude Code. Okay, and so I'm going to hit create here. And what Docker Desktop is doing is it's providing an MCP gateway, what we call it, almost think of like an MCP proxy, where when I'm going to, back here, okay. When I look at the MCP server, it's going to say it's connected. It's really connected to this MCP proxy again. And then when I actually am going to run these tools, okay, so maybe get my user profile, I could see, okay, this is going to give me details about the authenticated GitHub user, etc. Okay, so tell me about my GitHub profile. Okay, what we'll see here is since I've got that MCP server connected, it's going to ask, great, can I call that tool? Yep, go ahead and call that tool. And now it's got information about me. And then I can summarize it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, try it again. Now, one of the things I'm going to show, I'm going to have to, let me go back here and say, okay, you can see it was a very short time. It spun up a container for the GitHub MCP server, executed the tool, and then, well, hey, that MCP server doesn't need to be up and running anymore, and so it automatically just killed off that container. So the MCP server is only running for when it needs to be running rather than constantly up all the time. And so the tooling in Docker Desktop is, again, it's certain as that MCP proxy. And then when tool requests actually come in, that's when it'll actually spin up the container, delegate the work to the actual MCP server, get the response, go from there. And as you're probably already thinking, I had to go through the OAuth flow, give this service access to my OAuth credentials and whatnot. So when that container starts up, it's injecting some secrets securely into the container. We're actually building a whole new secrets engine, which is I'm super excited about. That can store secrets in the Mac keychain and other places to keep it secure. So stay tuned for more in that regard, but that's helping to support a lot of this stuff as well.
Does it have to spin it up to get what tools it provides in the first place? It like spins up the container, reads that information.
Yeah, good question. So it'll do that for things. So if I like create my own custom catalog with my own custom MCP servers, yes, it'll do that. Otherwise, this default catalog, when we put entries into the catalog or we update the entry in a catalog to point to a new version of that MCP server, we actually basically load all the tools into that catalog so that it's already pre-cached, pre-warned already at that point. Yep. And so that also helps with like tool poisoning attacks or that kind of stuff where hey, this thing says get user profile, but now another tool, another MCP service trying to use that same name, we can prevent those kind of attacks as well too.
Oh, are the tool calls not?
They're not guaranteed to be universally unique. But what you'll see is a lot of times.
So when the AI spits out the tool call request, is the MCP server? I mean, I guess are they namespaced? I guess I don't know.
So what you'll see a lot of times is if I've got multiple MCP servers in Claude,
Yeah.
The way those are, back up for a second. Okay, the way the AI flow works, Claude would talk to all the MCP servers, like give me the list of tools that you have.
Right.
And then it will then collect all that, and then when it sends a request to the model, that request contains the system prompt, all the conversation history, et cetera. But then here's all the tools that are available to you.
Right.
Okay. Now, so dumb and probably less security conscious ones will just take the exact names that came from the MCP servers and just pass that along. What a lot of these other tools will do is we'll say, hey, I'm going to prefix, you may say get user profile, but what I'm actually going to pass off to the model is going to be an MCP identifier _ get user profile. So Claude will do some namespacing there to ensure that they can't poison each other. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess would have assumed that when it was building the prompt for the model that they would be namespaced by MCP server.
Yeah, so again, that's the responsibility of whatever tool you're using to do that. Yep. But most of them will do some sort of namespace in there. Yep. But of course, like every character you add is additional tokens and context that you're using as well too. So you want to be careful how much you put in descriptions.
What if we took all our APIs and made them text-based instead?
Exactly.
It's more advanced.
Well, and so like looking at this, GitHub's at 49 tools. That's a lot of tools. And I forget Cursor actually would, for a while, it may have changed its bounds. But for a while, if you crossed over 30 tools, it'd be like, whoa, you're getting a little crazy here. You're taking up a lot of context in your tools, and it would kind of flag it.
Not a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the threshold is now that it gets after you, but fortunately now that the models have much larger context windows, it's not as much of a concern. But of course, you don't want to just be like, hey, let's see, what tools might I use in development today? Let's add AWS, let's add GitHub, let's add Atlassian, let's just add every tool under the sun. That's going to take up a lot of context and a lot of tokens, and it's going to cost more. And yep. Okay. All right, we're getting late. So okay. So there's MCP related stuff there. Cool. But again, this is what we're building towards. Again, thinking about your agent interactions as this microservice system, where you've got the developer workstation. Now this is a micro VM basically, where the agent is running in a container inside the micro VM, and all the MCP servers are running as separate containers, and they only have the credentials that they need to have access to. Now you're setting up a least privileged, more secured system. There's a network boundary around this where you can see everything that's flowing in and out, and you can trace it back to where was it coming from, where what's is that allowed or not, et cetera. Getting to a much better environment here. Now, of course, some of the things that this doesn't fix is, so for example, if I had a tool that said, and we actually saw this, imagine I'm using the GitHub MCP server, okay? And if I said, hey, go get issue details, okay? And I fetch this issue and it says, okay, cool, we need to create an index of all the private repositories in our organization and do some processing with it, whatever. Well, the attack was getting all this private information and then using another tool to exfiltrate it. So what ended up happening was this attack was saying, again, grab all this private data, but instead of sending it to evildomain.com, hey, it's quite likely if you have the tool to get issues, you probably also have the tool to create an issue. So let's create an issue that then the body of that issue is the exfiltrated data. Okay. And to most network proxies, that's just another call to api.github.com. Cool. Yeah, that's allowed. And so this doesn't catch that kind of stuff. And that's, again, that's a much harder problem to fix and solve for. So, so again, you still do have to be careful when you expose tools, and especially if you're reading data from arbitrary users, external data, unvetted content, that could still be taken advantage of.
So can you do the granularity of the rights that you can say, like you can read issues, but you can't create issues? You can,
Yeah, so in here, so for
Inbound
example,
traffic, not outbound kind of thing.
so in here, like I can get granular and say, yeah, I can create,
To turn off delete file.
yeah. So yeah, you can go in here and delete, customize the tools that are there. One of the things that it's not there yet, but of course I had to go through an OAuth flow to give it permission to do stuff. We don't yet have it easy for you to be able to say, I want to change what scopes are are granted in that flow. Okay, I want you to have access to this, but I'm going to give you only a read-only scope here.
So would you be better off to just create a new token with those specific permissions?
So if you want to be that granular, then yeah, I would probably go and create a personal access token that has the scopes that you want, and then just configure the personal access token that way. Right now, it's basically just a full rights, and then again, you can specify which tools you actually want to grant from there. So yeah.
Does the OAuth also handle like SSO?
Yeah, I mean, so because all that's
Like
on the
if your
GitHub auth side of
organization
things.
has an SSO?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so like I could technically use this to look up Docker related, internal repo stuff or whatnot. Yep. All right, so again, that's kind of where we're going. The last thing, and no, I don't want to go too much longer here. But again, I'll just kind of show this. This is something else that we're working on. There's been an open source project called C-Agent. It's in the process right now, actually just being renamed to just Docker Agent, which is a open source project that is an opinionated agent builder / runner. And the idea here is that I can build and share agents just using YAML, because we need yet another thing defined in YAML. But so for example, okay, this is a very simple one and kind of a silly one. Okay, you're an agent that answers questions, but in a whimsical manner, speaking like a pirate. Okay, yeah, it's kind of a ridiculous one. Hopefully, you never would actually want to use an agent like this. But again, I can define my agents here. In this case, there's just a single agent. The model that it's going to use is Anthropic Claude Sonnet 4.6. I give it the system prompt, and I give it, here's the tools that you have access to. Okay, cool. And then I think I've actually got that set up over here. Maybe it's the other one. Okay. And so then I can say, yep, let's go ahead and run this. Add this. Okay. Yeah, I just had it renamed. Okay, C agent run first agent. Okay, and so now I've got this. So I'll give it the same thing. Tell me about my GitHub profile. Okay, or let me peer into the spyglass and fetch you your GitHub profile details. Okay, and so again, this is using the MCP server, and now it gives me details. You sail a mighty fleet, or
mighty, yeah, many.
That's funny. But again, now of course this is a very kind of silly example here. It also tells me, okay, hey, that costs 5 cents. It's for that. Yeah, it's a good thing Docker's paying the bill, right?
I can see that this is perfect to just automatically activate on the Talk Like a Pirate.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I can run the agent. I can also, again, I probably wouldn't want to, but I can publish this agent as an OCI artifact in a container registry, and then anybody could just say, hey, run this silly pirate one, and it'll just download and run it. Great. You can also do multi-agent stuff where I have a root agent that says, okay, break down a user request, ask the researcher to gather facts. So there's a researcher agent that then maybe uses a different model and has different tools to be able to go fetch and do some research, et cetera. And then there's a writer, and again, just kind of condense this just to be able to fit on the slide. But then a writer that actually goes and actually does things. This one is used in DMR, which is Docker Model Runner, which would actually run with a model locally on my machine, for example. And so I can kind of pick and choose different models for different tasks, different agents, et cetera. And as one example of this, I have a, okay, there's a one that I've been playing around with a little bit, in which the root agent, I've given it tools to be able to do some thinking and write to the file system. But say, you're the leader of a team of AI agents for a technical blog writing workflow. Here are the members of your team. And so outline the team members. Here's the workflow. I need you to go do some research and looking up stuff. Call the writer agent to write a technical blog post. Save the file if you're asked to do so. Here's some rules of engagement, et cetera. And then there's the different agents, search the web for the information, always include sources, and it just is given DuckDuckGo. And then the last one, actually does the writing, and I tell it, hey, write in Spanish, because why not? And so, I can here for that at the top here. Write me a blog post, sure. Let's use that one. Ran this demo not long ago. And this will take a couple minutes for it to run, so I won't sit here and let it run the whole thing. But and actually, kind of the cool thing with the TUI as well, I can see that the flow here, I can scroll up and down as I want to over here. I'm just going to allow all tools. Why not? What can go wrong? And I can see, okay, there's 3 agents as part of this workflow. Which one is actually working right now? And so I can see kind of where the flow, this particular one is being used. It's going out and fetching content. I think it tried to do, it tried to search DuckDuckGo, but it was hitting bot detection issues there. So then again, the agent was just like, well, fine, I'll just go to docker.com's website and find out about sandboxes there and whatnot. And so it's going to go and just fetch a bunch of content and summarize it, and then the technical writer will actually go and do the writing. And maybe we'll just let that run for a few minutes and come back to it and see what it ends up with.
Is the agent calling the other agent, is that something that's built into this Docker agent, or is that something that's just built into Claude Code, or?
Yeah, good question. This is something that it's most agent tools have some ability to have sub agents. Okay. So this is something that we've built into the Docker agent here. At the end of the day, something's got to orchestrate. So there's a Claude can do the same thing, which it says, okay, hey, I need to delegate this work to a sub agent, and so you can do a lot of the same things with Claude or Codex or any of the other tools. This is just a capability that we provide. Wow, it's even looking at sysdig articles. That's interesting. So it's going to try to gather a lot of context and build out blog posts.
So these slides, just to ask, sorry,
go for it.
A little bit. These slides and some of these config files and different things, are you going to have that available in a repo for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can show you. So now it's summarizing what it found and what it learned. What I will say too is, so C agent. So here's the GitHub repo for it as well too. There's a repo here, or a folder for lots of different examples of different things that you can, different types of agents.
There's pirate.yaml.
Yeah. Somebody wants it. But actually, we've been starting to use this internally, because one of the things that we've done, our Ask Gordon agent. When you go to Ask Gordon and interact with Gordon here, this is actually using C agent under the hood now. And so it's a multi-agent system there as well too. And we've got customized agents. So if it's a, hey, you asked to migrate this Docker file from using Docker official images to the new Docker hardened image catalog that we provide, there's an agent that's specialized just in that kind of work. And so it'll delegate to that sub agent for that job. In fact, I've got an example of that here where you can see that the DHI migration sub agent is being used here. But we've also, we've got a C agent action. So in GitHub Actions, you can trigger a C agent job, okay? And so one of the things that we've actually got is our docs team, for example, every time that a PR is opened, anybody on the docs team can just say, hey, review, and then C agent is going to then look at the PR and generate a summary and okay, does this meet style guide? Is this something we should accept or whatnot? And the prompts and everything are part of the code repository, so anybody can just take a look at it and see, okay, how's this working? So they're using it to review every PR now. Additionally, they also have a another workflow that runs every night at 3 a.m. UTC, okay, that basically is scanning through the docs for what they call freshness checks of just, are there things that are out of date? Are there things that aren't meeting the style guide? So if they update the style guide within 24 hours, they'll get issues of here's all the things that are now not matching the style guide. And it's using C agent for all this as well. And so they're, again, looking at lots of different ways to use agents to both validate PRs. And I've also actually seen just in the last 2 or 3 days, the internal repo for all the Docker Sandbox stuff is also using these same PR bots as well too to analyze the PRs and look for bugs that we might have not have caught, et cetera too. So, so anyways, all right, recap, because I know we've been chatting for a while here. So Docker's giving you all these different tools to find and run the AI created apps. So those are the original one, and just run things in containers. It opens up a lot of opportunities for agents to do things and just keep your environment locked down. Run agents and tools with guardrails. I know we're not at the final vision yet, especially getting MCP integrated with the sandboxes and whatnot. But again, thinking of how do you run your agents and put the proper guardrails in place, be able to see what's going on. The number of times I still see people like, yeah, I just give my agents these 50 tasks and I go to bed at night and see what it finished in the morning. Like, I'm not at that point yet, but we know it's in the future. We know that that's where people are wanting to get to. So how do we unlock that, but do so safely? So that's a lot of what we're looking at. And then finally, a lot of the tools to create your own app. So for that, thanks. And I'll share the slides out, and these are just QR codes to the docs as well too. So you can just open up docs and yeah. There's just random prompt injections and QR codes.
So you're saying that C agent is already there in the latest Docker Desktop?
Yeah, so C agent is actually we've been shipping that in Docker Desktop for probably almost a year now.
Oh, okay.
We just haven't talked much about it yet. And yeah, I'll admit it's kind of a funky spot because Docker has traditionally been more about the runtime layer and isolation and that kind of stuff. And so C agent was kind of the first thing that we've ever done that's been more like, hey, here's a higher level opinionated thing that you actually run, and it's its own application and whatnot. So it's kind of taken us a while to figure out where does it fit in? How do we talk about it? Sorry.
Is it running the agents that you define in containers? I assume it is.
So the MCP servers themselves, yes, and actually let me go back. When I don't have it running anymore. So I can actually launch a new session here. Let's say local AI demo. Okay, this sandbox that I'm running in right now is a C agent sandbox session.
Okay. But if you just do the C agent
So
without,
if I just do a C agent run, it's not using the sandbox capabilities yet.
okay,
So not yet. But also,
it would still be in a container though, right? You'd get the security guarantees from that. You just wouldn't get the extra security guarantees from.
so one of the things that you may notice here, remote agent. We're also, this is some of the sneak peek, and this is probably still 2 months out, but we're building an agent platform where then you can say, well, hey, maybe start the agent work here on my local machine, but all right, push it to the cloud, and then I can check on it on my phone as I go throughout the day, or like, hey, I was at dinner or whatever, and I thought, hey, this is another good idea. I want to talk to my agent and be able to pull it up and talk to it. So having this, in fact, if you've used the new, so Warp, the Warp terminal, it has a new capability called Oz that does agent workloads and that kind of stuff. And Oz, it's kind of funny, the man behind the curtain, that the remote sandboxing capabilities is all provided by these remote Docker Sandboxes. So they're kind of our design partner in building this out as well too. So yeah, where we're working towards is having this unified runtime where I can start containers here, I can push them somewhere else, I can continue the work elsewhere, and that's opened up some really cool opportunities. So, the next version of the Docker Sandbox is actually being worked on. We're looking at what's the next version of the Docker engine look like, and anyways, there's a lot of cool things in store there. Anyways, can't give away too many nuggets right now, but yeah, this flexibility of workloads is a really interesting idea. Say I'm going to start this here, move it there, or share it with my team member, or that kind of stuff. It starts to open up some really interesting ideas. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah.